Minister Yang and I spent time laying the groundwork for the first meeting between our two presidents, which will take place at the London G20 summit in April. We also consulted on preparations for the summit itself, and Minister Yang is heading over to see Secretary Geithner to continue that conversation. The United States and China have a joint responsibility to help ensure that the summit yields tangible progress and concrete action steps toward a coordinated global response to stabilize the world's economy and to begin a recovery. We also covered a range of shared security challenges, including our efforts to achieve a denuclearized North Korea, to promote stability and progress in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and to address the challenges posed by Iran. We talked about how we could work together to address the humanitarian crisis in Darfur and stem the suffering of more than 1.4 million people who have been put at risk by the actions of the Bashir government. On climate change and clean energy, we discussed the upcoming meeting between our special envoy for climate change and his Chinese counterpart. Now, Minister Yang and I also spoke about areas where we do not agree, including human rights and Tibet. The promotion of human rights, as I've said many times before, is an essential aspect of American global foreign policy. It is part of our use and definition of smart power, and it's essential in an era where we are emphasizing diplomacy and development. It has been a core belief of ours that every nation must not only live by, but help shape global rules that will determine whether people enjoy the right to live freely and participate to the fullest in their societies. Indeed, our own country must continually strive to live up to our own ideals. Our bilateral relationships cover a broad range of issues, but we make clear to all nations, including China, that a mutual and collective commitment to human rights is important to bettering our world as our efforts on security, global economics, energy, climate change, and other pressing issues. With that in mind, Foreign Minister Yang and I discussed the resumption of the human rights dialogue between our two countries. While we may disagree on these issues, open discussions will continue to be a key part of our approach, and human rights is part of our comprehensive agenda. I also raised our concerns about the recent incident involving the U.S. Navy ship Impeccable and the PRC vessels in the South China Sea. We both agreed that we should work to ensure that such incidents do not happen again in the future. There is no doubt that world events have given the United States and China a full and formidable agenda. And the United States is committed to pursuing a positive, cooperative, and comprehensive relationship with China, one that we believe is important for the future peace, progress, and prosperity, not only for both of our countries, but indeed for the entire world. And I'll be happy to take some questions.
First question, Marshall.
How are you?
Secretary Clinton, on the Impeccable, do you continue to believe that the U.S. ship was in the right, was in international waters, and was harassed by the Chinese vessels? And do you think that, with your agreement to try to avoid these things in the future, that the case is now closed, or this is going to be a continued irritant in the relationship? And on the G20 preparations, do you think that China has done enough to stimulate its economy? And how do you answer the view that, given how heavily indebted the United States is, particularly to China, that you don't have that much leverage over them on these matters?
Very comprehensive questions. With respect to the Impeccable, we have each stated our positions. But the important point of agreement coming out of my discussions with Minister Yang is that we must work hard in the future to avoid such incidents and to avoid this particular incident having consequences that are unforeseen and I appreciate the agreement that Minister Yang and I hold on this matter. With respect to the G20, the important outcome of the G20 is a recognition and agreement among the countries participating as to the steps that we must take individually and collectively to stimulate a global recovery by stimulating demand and making investments that will bear fruit as quickly as possible. I think that the significant stimulus that the Chinese have already committed to is a very positive step. There are a number of issues related to the outcome in London that will have to be worked through between not only our two countries, but all of the countries participating. And there's a lot of hard work to do between now and the summit in London. But there is a great commitment and willingness on the part of both our government and the Chinese government to play productive and constructive roles in helping to move the world toward this recovery that will be essential, not only to get jobs growing again, but also to alleviate the suffering of the poorest people in the world who will bear the brunt of a stalled or falling economy. You know, we each come to this with different strengths and weaknesses. We are still the largest economy in the world. We are a flexible, agile, incredibly dynamic economy. I have no doubt about our capacity to recover. It's not going to be easy, and it will take some time, but I am absolutely confident. I think the Chinese are equally committed to stimulating growth, to being able to help push the global economic agenda as well. Obviously, we will have difficulties in dealing with the economic challenges we face. For China, they're an export-driven country. They need consumers to buy those exports. For us, going into deficits to the extent we must in order to put in place our recovery plan is something we're going to have to deal with. We can't just ignore it, even though it may be necessary now. So, you know, we bring different strengths to the table that we're trying to utilize on behalf of global growth now, and then we'll have to deal, as you always do, with the consequences of the actions we're taking now. It's not over until the lady in the pantsuit says it is.